Okay, so imagine we have $100 million to spend on real estate. We could buy anything: private beachfront, hundreds of acres, maybe even our own private island. Or you could buy a tiny apartment. Yes, I said an apartment. Because this is Monaco. And somehow $100 million for an apartment doesn't sound that crazy. This tiny country has become one of the most expensive hubs for real estate. You've got super yachts, Ferraris stuck in traffic, and some of the richest people in the world paying insane amounts just to live here. So I started wondering, why? Why Monaco? And why would even a billionaire pay this much for an apartment? Because once you actually understand what's happening here, the price starts to make a little bit more sense. Welcome back to Rotion. I'm Big John. This episode, we're going to be talking about $100 million apartments in Monaco. Let's get into it. So first, you have to understand how small Monaco actually is. Because when you see pictures of it, it looks like a normal city. But it's not. Monaco is basically squeezed between France, the mountains, and the Mediterranean. And there's actually nowhere for it to go. You can't just drive 30 minutes outside the city and be in a whole nother subdivision. There's no endless supply of land, and there's barely any land at all. But here's the problem. A lot of very wealthy people want to live here. So you've got this tiny amount of real estate and an enormous amount of money chasing it. And if you know anything about real estate, you already know what happens next. Prices go up. Way up. And this is where things start to get even more ridiculous. Because let's say you have $100 million. Almost everywhere else in the world, that kind of money would get you anything you want. Something enormous. A mansion, huge estate, land, privacy, maybe your own beach. But in Monaco, you might be looking at an apartment. Now obviously, we're not talking about some regular 2-bedroom apartment in the city where you can hear your neighbors talking. These places can have massive terraces, rooftop pools, and views straight across the Mediterranean. They're incredible. But still, $100 million. You're paying for Monaco. You're not paying that kind of money just because the kitchen is nice and the bathroom looks cool. You're paying for Monaco itself. There's only so many apartments here. Only so many penthouses and so many properties overlooking the Mediterranean. And once they're gone, that's basically it. Well, sort of. Because Monaco came up with a pretty crazy solution to just that problem. Let's talk about it. They started making more land. Seriously, think about how wild that is. Normally, if you're a developer and there's no land available, you're pretty much stuck. But not here. Monaco has literally expanded into the Mediterranean Sea. They're engineering new sections of coastal line and putting some incredibly expensive real estate on top of it. Now, because Monaco is basically designed around wealthy people, you've got the yachts, the casino, luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, designer stores, the Grand Prix literally running through the streets. And you've got the French Riviera right outside the door. Nice is nearby. Italy isn't that far away. And you're extremely well connected to the rest of Europe. But that doesn't fully explain it. Because there's one more piece of this story that's probably the biggest one. You guessed it, taxes. And this is where Monaco starts to make a little more sense. For many qualifying residents, Monaco can offer some pretty serious tax advantages when you compare it to other parts of Europe. And suddenly, that $20 million apartment starts looking a little different, right? At that level, you're not necessarily looking at the apartment the same way the average buyer would. The apartment could be part of a much bigger financial decision. So instead of thinking, why would anybody spend 20 million bucks on this? The better question might be, what does living here give someone who's worth 500 million? And that's when Monaco starts making a lot more sense.